Thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listeners, great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, our guest today, in our long line of awesome guests, continues to kind of take the mantle and move it forward even more. His name is Kyle McDowell. He has written a book called The 10 Wheeze, and he's going to talk through kind of his experience in his professional life that led him to develop this process, or it's not even a process, it's some principles by which you can provide excellent leadership, is what it's really all about. And so we're going to hear directly from Kyle how that came about, how he's been out kind of spreading that word and working with groups to help them understand how they can use these. And just like it's an awesome, going to be an awesome conversation. Really excited about it. So let's bring Kyle on to the program now. So Kyle, thanks so much for joining me here at Salty Ginger Talk. Love having you aboard.
Joe, brother, the pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here today.
Yeah, me too. And I know we had to, it's funny because before we came on, I had to reschedule this. I think it was a travel snafu that got me, but whatever it was, Kyle apologized to me for rescheduling. I said, no, I think I was the one that had to reschedule. So you're about to get a little class in radical accountability from a couple of people that try to practice it.
Well,
Not
we
so
I-
much.
we, we both owned it. Turns out this time it was on you, but if you would have given me another time or two, I probably would have had to reschedule. It'd been on me. So we owned it though. I'm thrilled to be able to finally make it work because you're doing really important work. I was fortunate enough to spin around on your channel over the course of the last couple of days, and I just feel privileged to be a part of the conversation and be on the platform. So I'm very grateful.
Well, appreciate the kind words. I mean, it's what makes our platform awesome is our guests and
Mm.
the kind of the unvarnished truth that our guests share with our audience and what they've learned when they from where they started in life to where they got to. And I've been really excited to talk to you because you made a couple of pivots that probably didn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people that were in your life when you made them. And that takes some guts, it takes some fortitude, and it teaches you a lot of stuff. And I know that you've kind of built a whole new career on what you've learned, and we get to talk about that for a while as well. But the way we usually do that is I cede the floor to the guests and say, hey, tell me about yourself. Where'd you start? How'd you end up where you're at? Kind of talk us through at high level. Then we do deep dives on stuff that's important to you on what you learned as you've made your way through life. So,
Yeah,
floor is
yeah.
yours, my friend. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Well, you bet. So I would venture to guess that my story is not wildly dissimilar from past guests and most likely not very different from your audience. When I entered the workplace, and I'll start from a professional perspective because then I just think that's probably a good start and sprinkle in some non business or professional stuff because nobody is just one person. They're not always just a work person. But so I started my career no different than, like I said, probably the bulk of your audience, you included, in that when I entered the workplace, man, I wanted to add a lot of value. I wanted to have an impact, make an impact. I wanted to make a lot of money. But I wanted to find fulfillment. I was really eager to enter the workplace. I was passionate about driving change, leaving people better than they were when they started, leaving organizations better when they started than when they started. I didn't know what any of that meant, but I just knew I wanted to have an impact and do big things. And, by most standards, I had a pretty successful run in the corporate world. And I always use air quotes because we all define success differently. But, I managed to work my way up the corporate ladder. Ultimately, before I exited corporate America, for context, in my last two gigs, I led about 30,000 people, multi-billion dollar P&Ls. So I checked a lot of those kind of ego-driven vanity metrics. If I was leading 100 people, I wanted to lead 500. If I was leading 500, I wanted 1,000. It was never enough. I always wanted the bigger, sexier title, the bigger scope. In hindsight, most of that was fueled by my ego, if I'm being completely honest.
Mhm.
And I had a really, really good run. But I'll tell you, Joe, the only thing that matched the promotions and the titles and the increases in comp and all that was my level of apathy. Dude, I reached a point where the whole machine, it just chewed me up and it spit me out. But I was at least self-aware enough at the time. This is probably about 10 years ago now. I was 20 years into my career and I'd become so disenfranchised, disconnected. Apathy, as I mentioned, was incredibly strong. And I got to this point where I just started to ask a lot of questions, and the main one that played out over and over for me was, is there a better way? Because Joe, I was that guy for the first 20 years of my career. I was a product of the environments I kind of grew up in the corporate world. So I would bang my fist on the desk. Results mattered a hell of a lot more than anything else. I really don't care how we get there, but let's just get those results. And I will say, brother, it is one hell of a gut punch to wake up one morning and realize you loathe the very environments that you were responsible for creating.
Hmm.
That was tough. And it was kind of exacerbated when I started to ask all these questions. I leaned into some of my confidants, people that I had worked with for a number of years that I felt, we had a fair amount of trust and transparency with one another. And I learned that what I thought was respect was really just fear. They feared me, which is also a hell of a gut punch. So I went through this reevaluation kind of self-reflection period of time where I realized there had to be more than this gig of corporate America. We're going to work 100,000 hours ish in our lifetime, second only to sleep. Out of all things we do on this planet, behind sleep, it's work. And I just came to this realization that there had to be more. I didn't know what that meant. I knew I needed to be a different leader. I had this recipe for air quote success, but not fulfillment. And I had lost the connection with that eagerness and optimism and desire to make an impact. I was just going through the motions on the hamster wheel of corporate America, checking boxes, trying to get the next raise, the next promotion. And it just left me empty, man. So I made a decision. I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do next, but I left a pretty cush corporate job. And I just told myself that when I go back to the fray, because I wasn't independently wealthy, still not, but I needed to be in a position, I had to get back to a place where I felt like I could be the leader I always wanted to be, or the leader I never had. And I was out of work for about 11 days, 10, 11 days. I got a phone call with a really tremendous opportunity that I ended up following up on and taking a role that allowed me to just kind of stretch my wings in a way that felt uncomfortable the previous 2 decades. And then within the first 60 days or so, I created these principles that were essentially designed to say, here's what you can expect from me as your leader, the new guy in the room. Here's what you can expect. And it was 10 sentences, each begin with the word we. And I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but it created kind of a manifesto inside of this organization that drove wild transformation. Nearly every KPI went to all-time highs, but more important, and what still resonates with me today and what kind of compels me to do what I do now is watching bosses transform into real leaders, people that actually give a shit about the person to their left and right, and not just about the results. The silos were starting to break down. And you could see people's excitement and eagerness around what they had already done for many, many years, but now with a different approach. So instead of me leaning so hard into the results, I chose, right or wrong, to lean into the people, hoping the results would come. And it works. Imagine that. It works. So I went on from there to another organization, took those principles with me, and ultimately decided that I had a bigger calling. And that history, those experiences, along with some gentle urging from my previous team who was there when I created these principles, said, okay, big time, you got a book in you, right? I was like, what? No, I'm not an author. I'm not writing a book. And they just kind of nudged me and they're like, well, if you're really about this, or is it all talk? Because if you're about this, then you have a bigger calling. It's time to take that. So I did, wrote a book with the goal of selling about 1,000 copies. I figured I knew enough people that knew enough people who would be kind enough, just out of charity and nothing else, to buy my book. Begin with We came out just over 3 years ago now, and we're at around 50,000 copies sold. And it continues every month, continues to eclipse the previous month. And I don't share those numbers, Joe, out of vanity. I share them because it tells me that there's a hunger for this better way that I have found. And so today, I work with leadership teams and organizations around the globe, doing keynotes or workshops or partnering one-on-one to try to get them to see this better way. And it's what fuels me, man. So I did mention I would sprinkle in a personal thing here too, but it's probably worth mentioning that when I made this kind of pivot in my life, I was at the doorstep of a divorce, which ultimately happened. I was not a healthy guy by any means, and I was not a very nice guy to be around.
Mm.
And I just realized that, that stuff was certainly impacting my work life. My work life was certainly impacting my personal life. So I had to make some changes. Now, I don't want to mislead your audience. It was scary as shit. I didn't know what was next. I just knew I had a hunch there had to be more. And turns out there is. And I guess all in all, that's a blessing because if nothing else, it encouraged me to write the book, get the message out, and then I get a chance to chat with guys like you. But that's who I am and where I've come from and where I am today.
Man, I love that. Yeah, look, chatting with guys, every job has its downside. You run across people like me every once in a while. So
You
not
can't have
everything's
it all, right?
100%. But look, so in all seriousness, Kyle, I love your candidness, and that's what our podcast is all about. We don't do the Instagram version of stuff. I've been fairly successful in my life in business. I've been wildly successful professionally or personally, I mean.
Right
Um,
on.
and
Love to talk about your fam.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I've been married for the best person I've ever met in my life for 33 years this August,
So
and
cool. That's so inspiring, man.
right, we raised three sons together, and I always say they got the right things wrong with them. They got their problems like anyone else does, but they're good men. They take care of the people around them. They try to show leadership and make other people better. The stuff you're hoping for, you know.
Respect. Yeah,
And
very cool.
I love that stuff. But my whole point here, I'm doing the opposite of what the point I was trying to prove, which is I have fucked up a lot of stuff in my life. I mean, a lot. Like I can't even count it. Like if you had, I bet you my wife probably has a list somewhere that I've never seen. But
She has a spreadsheet.
she's got it somewhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I really appreciate your candidness because I think what gets a lot of people or prevents a lot of people from starting is they look at someone who's had a large amount of success. And I
Oh
want to
yeah.
talk about the definition of success with you because I couldn't agree with you more that I think the first things that pop into our head when we picture success do not define success, or at least they shouldn't if we're thinking about it
Yeah.
in a productive way.
Right.
Um, but you being honest about, hey, on the outside, I looked like I was,
Yeah.
excuse me, I
Crushing
was
it.
killing it. Yeah,
Yep.
I had it. And on the inside, I mean, apathy, think about apathy, like a guy like you that's driven, a guy like me that's driven. I've had moments of apathy or periods of apathy in my life.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get someone who's an A-type hard charger to go, I don't give a fuck about this anymore.
That's right.
What? Yeah,
So
it's
true.
did you have did you have an epiphany on that, or was it kind of a slow creep where you finally looked up and said, you know what, all these little things are pointing me a different direction? How did it work in
Wow.
your mind when you realized all this, what looks like success, is kind of slowly killing me?
Slowly. It was a drip. It was a
Mm.
drip over time. And so I entered the workforce. So I've had a job of some type or another. I started back in groceries at 13. So I've always had some type of job. In my first foray into the corporate world, I had just turned 18.
Mhm.
My birthday is in July. My role at a regional bank here in Florida started in August. I was less than 30 days into being 18. And back in those days, I think it's safe to say nearly every single one of my peers, they were the primary breadwinner. It was their career. For me, it was a job to pay my way through my undergrad. When I graduated from my undergrad, I realized I was a mass communications major. I wanted to be, I'm going to date myself. I wanted to be the next Dan Rather. Mike, right? You remember Dan Rather, right? The
Of course,
OG of
I remember
news.
Walter Cronkite. That's how old I am.
There we go. Okay, right. Another OG. Um, but then I realized I was already making more money at the time working for this regional bank than I would have made as an on-camera personality right out of college, which was my goal. And I had bills and commitments and things that I'd already kind of amassed. So it's like, do you want to give all this stuff up and go chase your dream, or do you want to live in reality? And I chose reality. And I'm glad I did because it set me on a path that I'm very grateful for. But when you enter the workplace at that age, you're so impressionable. And let's be honest, leadership styles from the early 90s are wildly different than they are today. They should be, actually. The workplace has changed, the workforce has changed. The fundamentals are still there, but how we connect with those we lead has changed. But what to answer your question directly is, I entered at a young age. So the toxicity I witnessed and the dysfunction that I observed felt normal to me. I didn't know any better. So I replicated that behavior. I had shitty bosses, throughout most of my career. I had two or three that, were just the definition of leader. They were really impactful in my journey, but they were the minority. They were a fraction of the leaders that I worked with and worked for. So I would see this kind of duplicitous behavior, as I mentioned, toxic, and it felt like this is just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then you know how this works, man. We get on this hamster wheel and we run like hell, and we never take time to step off of it and say, am I having the impact I'm meant to have? Am I doing, like I always ask, if my younger self were watching me now, would he be proud? And then I go a step further. My mother, who's been gone for a dozen years now, I'm like, what would mom say? Would she be proud of the way I handled that one-on-one? Would she be proud of the way I reacted when I faced adversity? And those are kind of my filters going forward. But when we do take the time to step off the hamster wheel and assess what we're doing, the value we're adding, are we operating within our highest and best potential? Are we stretching? Are we doing things that can add value? Maybe we'll stumble here and there. When we have that self-reflection, you oftentimes realize that it's not supposed to be that way. And if you're a leader in an organization, you have an opportunity to change that. Don't wait for somebody else. I don't care if you lead one, two, 10, or 1,000 people. You have an obligation to that group of people, not to bang a fist on the desk and scream when things don't go well, but to actually partner with them, motivate, inspire. And we can go down that path if you like. But my point here is it was an absolutely slow drip that over time just kind of slowly chipped away. Didn't see it after day one, day two, day five, year five. I just kind of, this is the way it is. But it was around year 20. I said, there just has to be more.
Yeah, I love the way you described that, and um, I was as a point of reference, I've been in leadership positions my whole life. Like I don't want my destiny in somebody else's hands. I want my destiny in my own, like win or lose, pass or fail, live or die. I want it to be because of what I did.
Yep.
So I've always been in leadership positions because I always volunteer when there's leadership positions. Like I'll do it. I'll take the
Same.
reins. Fine by me. I might
Yep.
not know what I'm doing, but I can figure it out. And I've always
That's
been
right.
good at kind of getting people, a group of people to go towards a common goal in a common direction.
That's it. That's
Now,
it.
my methods used to be fucking terrible. Let's just be real clear about it. Like, unfortunately, experience is something you get right after you need it, and I've got a ton of experience,
Yeah.
meaning I've screwed up a lot of things.
Yep.
But to drive home the point you're talking about, I had an experience right around, I was about 10 years into my career,
Hmm.
and I was part of a group. I worked at a company that bought the assets of another company that had gone bankrupt.
Okay.
And they were in receivership, and so they were operating until they could wind down the business. And so there were still people working there, even though they knew it was going away.
Ooh, tough environment.
It really was. And I got down, this was actually down in Dallas, Texas. And I got down to Dallas with a small group from our company after we bought these assets. The day that they announced who had a job for 90 more days and who had to pack up their stuff and go, like it's over, time to go. And so we walk in, we didn't do anything wrong. We just bought the assets. But I mean, we look like Darth Vader
The
walking,
devil just
like,
got here.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brutal.
Yeah.
And so I actually wound up running the department that had offered me a job a year and a half before that I had turned down. Like it would have been just as easy for me to be sitting on the opposite side of the table. And it was funny. I walked in and the guy that ran the department, he goes, "You look familiar."
Oh
And I
boy.
said, "Well, I should, Jim, because like if you like me a little bit more, I'd be over there with you."
No, did you really say that?
I did. Yes.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
I said, but look, it's tough. I've always been very straightforward. I don't lie to people because I'm not smart enough to remember what I said to this guy and that guy. So like telling the truth is always a good
Never
people.
fails you.
Yeah,
Yep.
people always ask me, what should I say? I'm like, let's just start with the truth. How
Let's
about
start
that?
with that.
Let's start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
See what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but like these folks were good people. They were good people that
Sure.
were working at this company, and they were being impacted by just hubris from the management team. This company was an $11 billion company that went into bankruptcy without a line of credit at a bank. That's how poorly managed their financials were. It was brutal. And so I had people coming up to me saying, "Hey, I got to leave because I got to go get my tooth fixed because I don't have dental insurance next week." Or I've got to go meet a realtor because we have to sell our house because I or my wife doesn't make enough to pay the mortgage now that I'm not going to have this job.
Real
And
shit.
so I like the responsibility of leadership in an organization was burned into my brain
Mm.
from those
Mm.
experiences with those really good, hardworking people
Yeah.
that paid the price
Yeah.
for managerial malfeasance and just absolute mismanagement. And
Yeah.
I take that very seriously. So I was lucky that I learned that. With that said, it's hard when you're in an organization to push back, but I'm actually fairly good at pushing back. And I love the way you did kind of a clean, like I got to do something different.
Yeah.
Um, so talk a little bit about that. I'd love to hear a little bit about that. So you've got 20 years in and you say, "Hey, not for me." You cash in your chips. 11 days later,
Yeah.
you take another gig. And how do
Yeah.
you start going down a different path. Like that's not a long time to make a mental pivot like the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and I took it. I took the role because I felt like it was a logical next step in my career, but more importantly, I sensed that this was an environment that was ripe for transformation.
Mm,
The hiring manager, the fellow to whom I reported, great guy, brilliant guy, but I also sensed he was a little disconnected from the organization that I was hired to run, which at the time I was like, that's probably not good. But wait a second, maybe it gives me a little more autonomy that I don't have somebody overlooking, looking over my shoulder with every move that I made. And it turned out to be the case. And I want to be really clear in that the leaders within this new organization, wildly talented, man, in incredible amount of knowledge, probably like the experts in their field for this space. But there were a lot of silos.
hmm
And we had functional area over here performing okay, one over here performing really well, and then another that was not performing at all. But each of those respective leaders didn't recognize that, while their little functional area was winning, we weren't winning as a team because
Yeah.
there were still pockets of underperformance. And it came to a head to me the night before. I was about 60 days in. And the night before I was scheduled to meet with the top 40 or 50 leaders of my new organization, I was in my hotel room. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was terrified. I felt like this was a really important moment of my career because it was going to be my chance to kind of lay the foundation first with the understanding of what you could expect from me. Because when I wrote the principles, the 10 We's that evening, well, let me back up. So I'm in my hotel room, I crack open my laptop, and you can't have a good corporate meeting without some slides, right? So I have to put together a presentation. I have to put some slides together because that's what you do. It's bullshit, by the way, but that is what you do.
Otherwise, you feel like
Uh,
you're doing a puppet show, right? I mean,
yeah, right. The lasers and smoke accompanying and all that. So I had this plan to create a few slides just to kind of share my expectations with the team. And I remember thinking, okay, this is your chance in a new organization, 15,000 people, a $6 billion program, really important work. Do you want to bring those same leadership characteristics that got you to where you were, same recipe, or are you man enough to try something else?
mm,
And I just started typing and I replayed scenarios throughout my previous 20 years of times where bosses of mine, not leaders, but bosses of mine, they left me feeling less than valued. They left me feeling as if I was a means to an end, easily replaceable.
yeah,
And I thought, well, we ain't going to do that. We're not doing that. And then I kind of juxtaposed those so many negative experiences, including the time I had a boss say, hey, change this number on that spreadsheet because I've already shared a different number with our boss. So change that for me. I juxtaposed that with the two or three leaders who just saw more in me than I was probably capable of at the time, invested their energy and their care into me. And I thought, well, yeah, we're going to do that. That's who we are. We're going to do that. And as I played these scenarios through my brain, I'm typing the Excel example was the first one. I'm like, oh, we're going to do the right thing. Always. We're going to do, okay, that's the very first principle. We're going to do the right thing. And a couple hours later, I'm staring at these 10 sentences. And it was my going in premise with the team the next day that you don't know me. You really don't even need me because you guys have delivered really great work over the past decade or so. My direct reports, Joe, had an average tenure of about 12 years at the
mm,
time. They had forgotten more about their role than I even knew yet.
yeah,
And I realized that they needed me to go to another level, but they didn't need me to perform because they were already performing pretty well. So I thought, well, me coming in, look at these shiny shoes and my start shirt and my fancy MBA plaque on the wall. Like they've heard all those things, as is the case with most organizations. They've heard the knight in shining armor who's coming to save the day, or the newest leader with the newest shtick, whatever that is. And I realized, at least at that moment, it felt to me as if that felt insincere and inauthentic. I needed them more than they needed me. So for that to be true, I needed them to know what to expect of me. And I said, I'm not going to hold you accountable to these just yet. I want you to see me live them first. I want you to see me model them. And if you see me behave any way contrary to any one of these principles, I want you to grab me by the ear and say, you're being a hypocrite. I can be called a lot of things, but that's one word that really doesn't sit well with me.
hmm
And I was hands off from that moment forward. And I watched it happen organically. And I would sprinkle it in every now and then. It's like in a conference call, if we were going down a path that didn't feel right, I would say, hey guys, we challenge each other, right? It's we number 8. We challenge each other, right? And I would start to hear people replay those words in different settings that I wasn't even like really contributing to the conversation. So I could hear those words being played back. The next thing you know, we've got 10 we bracelets floating around. We've got signage on the walls. We've got coffee cups. We've got all. So this groundswell of momentum started to happen on its own. And that's when I realized it, and by the way, it probably took 6 or 8 months before I thought it was genuine. I thought I was being pandered to.
Mm.
You got to brown nose the new boss a little bit. It felt that way at first, until I had a very senior leader on the team just say, "Stop. Would you stop? It's working." And from that moment forward, I thought, okay, I need to ride this wave, and the wave has never really crashed. So that evening was a very terrifying moment for me, but it ultimately culminated in a transformation of an organization and people that I never predicted. And I'll add this one little nugget because I'm aware that some of this, I'm not naive that some of this may come across a bit Pollyannish or woo woo to maybe some of your audience. There was a woman in the group that was particularly difficult at every turn. In that first meeting, in subsequent meetings, she was difficult. She was a jerk to me. I don't know how else to say it.
Yep.
Um, we number nines, we embrace challenge. And I realized that hypocrite term might get tossed my way if here Julia is challenging me at basically every turn and I don't embrace it. Of course, I can shut it down because I got a bigger business card, which is what I would have done the previous 2 decades.
Right.
Um, Fast forward several months, if not more than a year, especially if we look at our relationship today, Julia is one of my closest confidants. And I think that's a testament to recognizing that when someone is a jerk in the workplace, especially to their boss, more often than not, it's a product of their experiences. They've been burned. Maybe they've been vulnerable and open with a boss who took advantage of that, or maybe they just didn't have the time or invested in them that they deserved. So with Julia, it was obvious to me if I towed this line of embracing her challenge, people are watching. They're watching to see if I'm the guy that's going to walk the walk or if I'm just all talk. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm very, very proud of the relationship we forged since then. She helped me name the book. It's just a commentary, I think, when you actually take the time to step off that leadership high horse, ground yourself with the team, be relatable, be authentic with them. Trust almost always follows. And that was the case I found then. And since then, working with leadership teams around the globe.
Yeah, such good stuff. I love the approach. And look, it's a gamble. Like you don't know how
It
things are
is.
going to turn out, but
That's
everything's a
right.
gamble. You really don't, there's no assurances in life. If I have
Yeah.
two things pop into my head. One is the quote that I love by Abraham Lincoln, which is, I do not like that man. I need to get to know him better. So,
Oh,
right, embrace challenge. It's like
that's
I
heavy.
try to follow that. Like if someone rubs me the wrong way, I'm like, you know what? I think this is on me. I gotta do some digging and spend more time with this person to see if look, every once in a while someone's just a bad apple, but they're
That's right.
exceedingly rare,
That's
exceedingly
right.
rare. But you know them when
Why?
you see them, and you give them
Hmm.
enough chances, and they'll prove it. But
That's right.
I try to bridge that gap and say, hey, there's some friction between us. What's going on there? Let's talk through it. Like I don't want that friction to be there. Like
Good
just
for you.
confront it, just like that.
That's all you have to do.
Yep.
That's you don't have to go into details. Like, tell me the experiences that are leading to you. But no. I just feel this tension. What's one of my principles is we pick each other up, and I just need you to know I care. You don't have to share anything with me, but it just feels like we're disconnected right now. Maybe I'm missing something. But if you don't ask the questions, how will you ever know?
That's
Right?
that's
That's
exactly
pretty
right.
simple.
And
Hmm.
then the second thing that struck me as you were talking, you had said that the team you took over, their average tenure was 12 years, and
Hmm.
here you are the new guy running the program. However, it's easy to, I've been in that situation, by the way, multiple times, so I know
Oh yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
And I certainly didn't have the epiphany or the organization that you had in putting the 10 We's together, but I almost always took the same approach, which was to just go up to the people and say, hey, look, we're in an interesting dynamic here. You guys all know way more about what we do than I do, but it's my job to lead this group. And so I need to know from you guys what works and what doesn't. What do
There
we
you go.
do that we shouldn't do anymore? What do you need from me to get things done that you can't get done now? Because it's my job to go slay the windmills and provide
That's
the
it.
resources
That's
and
it.
knock down the barriers. And so I think it's a really good example of your role on that team was to be a leader. It wasn't a functional expertise role.
That's
And
right.
I don't think enough people recognize that. Well, one of my favorite books, it's What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I don't know if you've ever read that, but
No, say more.
Yeah, it's a leadership book. And it essentially says when you go from a job as an individual contributor or a managerial level to a leadership role. And I would argue that managerial is a leadership role, but in this book, it kind of talked about, okay, now you're the galactic commander or whatever. And like I'm the CEO of our company. And so that comes with its own set of
Yeah.
issues. Like I can't get people to tell me the truth because they don't want to tell me the truth. Like,
And but I bet you got the funniest jokes in the room though, Joe.
yeah, of course I do. Of
That's how
course,
it works.
I'm the funniest guy in my company for sure.
Always, yep. No, not a surprise. Yep.
So, what got you here won't get you there says the skills that you need to be successful in a leadership role are wildly different than the skills that you need in an individual contributor role.
So
You still need
true.
to be diligent and do all that, but your job is to have a multiplier effect across the company. And the way you do that is by providing leadership to those that already know how to do what they're doing, but they need almost permission to push
That's
it
it.
forward or take
Yeah.
the next step or break through the next barrier. And
Yeah.
that's your job as the leader. And that really struck me when I read that book.
Joe, why do you, I'm gonna turn the tables here. I love what you said about approaching someone that there appears to be some kind of rub or disconnect, just saying, "Hey, I'm noticing this," and then you just added to that, like, I don't know what you guys know. Like, you guys are the experts, right? Why don't more leaders approach it in a similar vulnerable fashion? In your history, your experience, because I have my opinion, but I'm curious, why isn't it more common?
Yeah, I think it's fear and insecurity. I think it's really
Insecurity.
boils
That's
down
my
to fear and
answer.
insecurity.
Yes, sir.
I've always, right, wrong, or indifferent, regardless of whether I should be confident or not, I'm usually pretty confident. And that certainly got me in some tight situations where I should have been a little smarter about how I approach things and maybe not charged as hard as I did.
Yeah.
So it comes with its own set of circumstances that are
Yes, sir.
negative as well.
Mm,
But it has never bothered me to say, I don't know, or I'm
mm,
not currently good at this, but you are, and you could teach me how to do it.
hmm.
But I think the way I've thought about it is in order to get that knowledge, you have to show deference and humility and say, look, you're just better at this than me. I want to get better. I think you can help me, and I need your help to get there.
Well said.
One of the best ways to develop relationships that I have found is to actually ask someone for a small favor
Okay.
instead of saying, hey, here's what I can do for you, getting all salesy and used car guy on them. Saying, "Hey, I'm really struggling with this, but I think you could help. Could you do me a favor? Could you pave the way on this for me, or could you take the lead on this for me, or could you call this person for me and kind of grease the skids?" Man,
Hmm.
people feel so important when you
Yeah.
ask them for a favor, and it ingratiates them to you, and it gets your relationship started on a right foot. But to answer your question directly, I really think it boils down to fear and insecurity. They don't want
Yeah.
to look bad. Like it
Yeah.
literally comes down to, I don't want to look stupid. I'm in charge. I think they have outdated modalities of what leadership looks like. You're
Yes.
supposed to know everything. You're in charge. Not true at
Yes.
all. Not true
Yes.
at all.
Yes.
What's your take on it?
Insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say ego and insecurity, one and the same, perhaps in this context, but I got to be the smartest guy in the room. I have to have the answers. For me to win, someone else might have to lose. It's a threat to our authority. Um, all things driven by ego in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm totally with you. That's been my experience, and it has served me well. And the funny thing is, at least to me, I have a huge ego. Like I don't deny that for a second. I went through I went through college on a baseball scholarship and had a chance to play professional baseball. To get that good at something, you have to be extremely self-centered and extremely self-focused and
Fact.
extremely ego-driven to just I don't care what's going on. I got to work out. You guys go do what you're going to do. I don't
Yeah.
care what you're eating. I got to eat this because I got to stay in shape. I
Hmm.
don't care what you're going to do. I got to go
Hmm.
do this because that's part of the schedule. And so it's a very selfish and ego driven approach. So I'm certainly not saying I have a small ego because that's false. It's 100% false. But
Well, yeah.
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, I didn't mean to step on you there, but I,
No,
I
no,
think
go
there's
ahead.
such a fine line between ego and confidence.
Mm,
Right. So it sounds like you called it ego, but if you've reached that height in whatever it is that you do, there has to be confidence, or else I wouldn't be at this position that I'm in. Right. So I've got a really good buddy of mine's a retired MLB player,
mhm.
arguably top three ever in the position that he played, and he has introduced me to this way of talking about your own accomplishments in a way that comes across not arrogant, not egotistical. It's like, it's not my opinion that I did these things, or it's not my opinion that I'm really good at this. Check the tape, which is obviously a little bit easier to do in the sports world because numbers really don't lie. When we're talking about corporate America, there's some gray in there, so it's a little different. But I think in the absence of that confidence, ego takes over. So if I'm a leader in an organization and I might be confident about the things I bring to the table, but for whatever reason, it's probably some of the reasons we've already touched on. Like, I don't want to look silly. I don't want to look stupid. I got to be the smartest guy in the room. We mistake that need for confidence and we cloud it with our ego or a lack of vulnerability. And I bring up the Major League Baseball guy for a reason because I think there is an absolute skill to talking about your accomplishments, your accolades in a way that inspires
Yep.
others to grow and develop and be better than they were. The other side of that coin is doing it in a way that says, I'm better than you. Look at me, put the light on me. You don't need it. Maybe I'll give it to you every now and then, but usually the spotlight needs to stay on me. It's a real skill to do that. Which reminds me of a quote, and I can't remember who said it, that leadership is 50% theater.
100, yes, totally agree.
It is, right? And on the surface, that sounds so inauthentic, but I look at it very, very differently. It's theater in that I need to play a particular role with Yolanda, which might be very different than the particular role I play with Jim, because what motivates and inspires them is different from one person to the next. So when I say it's theater, and I think the expression comes from kind of that context, and that we almost have to be chameleons because everybody resonates with something different. They're inspired by different things. They have different motivations. But none of that will work if we allow our ego to stand in the middle or in front of it. Just won't.
Yeah, and there are some things that just convey a certain amount of respect. Like, for example, like when I walk down the street with my wife, I always try to make sure I'm on the street side and she's on the sidewalk side.
I
Or
love that.
if we're going to pass someone that looks a little bit sketchy, I'll just grab her by the hip and move her over to the other side. So I'm the one passing the sketchy situation or the sketchy person. Look, I'll tell you right now that if I was ever in a bar fight and I had to pick five people, my wife would be one of them. She is a
Hell
tough
yeah.
lady. She's very feminine. She's very girly, but she is tough. I mean, tough.
I love
But
it.
she didn't have to do that when she's around me. That's my role. That's what that we established that long ago. So it just shows a level of respect that I have for her that I think it matters. And that's theater. Like it's really theater when you think about it. But I think it matters in a lot of instances.
Well, yeah, it matters, but it also, I can't help but to connect it to the conversation we're having about leadership, right? You're looking out for her. You're
Mhm.
making sure, and you said this earlier, it's your job to get all the noise. I forget exactly how you framed it. Get the noise out of the way. Like it's your job to get everything out of, what'd you say? Slay. How did you frame it? Dude, you used an expression that I
Yeah.
really
Slay
like.
the windmills. Yeah. The
Slay.
donkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what you're doing with her, right? It's our job to get as much out of the way as possible, as much as we can. And in this case, the illustration you paint, it's like, yeah, I'm looking out for her. It's my job. It's the role that I signed up for. Not different than a leader. Like, and that's where I think people get in trouble, right? I want to get promoted to a position of authority because I'm going to make more money and I can tell people what to do. But that's like a fraction of what leadership is, man. It's more than checking boxes. It's actually looking out for those that you lead. And I think your illustration with your wife is a really good parallel.
Yeah, so another one on the theater part. So I work in the grocery business. That's what I do for a living. And the grocery business is 24/7, 365. Like name a day you don't have to eat, right? It just doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. So everyone's going to buy groceries all the time. And so it's like a high stress, do it right now type
Mhm.
environment. And so even on holidays, I worked at the largest wholesaler in the country. And even on holidays, we had to have coverage because what if a truck doesn't show up, or what if
Yeah.
this happens, or what if that happens? It was largely theater to do that. And so the groups I ran, I always just said, look, here's what the expectation is. We have to have two people here. I'm not going to say which two people have to be here. You guys figure it out on your own. I'll be here all the time because I'm a leader. That's my job.
Yes.
I worked every holiday. So I actually like doing it because I could take a different day off. And I got
Mm.
so much work done on the
Hmm.
holidays because my phone
Hmm.
wasn't ringing, everybody else was out
Yeah,
having
I
a
did
good
the same
time,
thing. Yeah.
And then, but what I, so like I had people in the group that had kids. So like, and so around Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, I said it shouldn't be the same two people that
That's
show
right.
up, but you guys tell me. Like some of you, Thanksgiving's a big deal. Some of you, it's not. Work that out on your own.
I love
Some
it.
of you, Christmas is a big deal. Some of you, it's not. work that out on your own.
I love it.
I'll be here with the two people. And they loved me for giving them the autonomy to set their own schedule at a time of the year that was important to them to be around the people that they cared about. And they were like exceedingly loyal to me just from a little thing like that. Instead of me being the boss and saying,
Hmm.
Jim and Betty are working this day and Sally and Tom are working this day.
Hmm. Hmm.
I need two people here. You tell me who it's going to be. I need
Yeah.
two people, is what it is.
Yeah. I think it's a good example that people are much more committed when they are able to author the story, when they're able, when they have a voice. You can either have compliance or you can have commitment. And if you come in and say, Jim and Sally, you're here on Thanksgiving Day, well, that's compliance. They're going to do what you ask them to do because you're the boss and they want a paycheck. But to
Right.
get people committed, I think there's so much value in having a dialogue and having, to the degree you can, I get it, it's work. Occasionally we have to say, this is how it is and we're moving forward. But to the degree you're able to allow people to play a role in authoring our path and have a voice in that path, man, commitment becomes so much easier to grab.
Yeah, for sure. So the 10 Wees take off at the place you started them at.
Mhm.
What made you move on from there and go to another organization where you could kind of implement the same thing?
Yeah, so I was one of those guys that I never took a role for that role itself. I always took a role because I thought it would be the right step in the next role.
Hmm.
And I was in that chair for about maybe 3.5 years when I had an opportunity to run similar size operation, about 15,000 people, but this time it was a $50 billion P&L.
Mm.
And it just felt like an evolution for me. And I don't know if I've ever said this on a podcast before, but so I went through this interview process with this other company. It's a Fortune 10 pharmaceutical firm, huge scope, biggest scope I was ever asked to lead. The interview process was 7 months.
Oh, good
I
Lord.
had 17 interviews. And meanwhile, I'm going through this, all this, jumping through all these hoops, and it was a role that I really did want. And when it came time for the offer and all that, it was a massive increase in pay. I mean, it's just across the board. It was one of those things you just felt like you have to do. And in typical Kyle fashion, I developed such a rapport and relationship with this entire team that instead of like HR sending a memo or me just saying I decided to go do it, I pulled together. I guess it's probably 100 or so people on a conference call to share that I was leaving.
Mm.
And I bawled.
Yeah.
I bawled. Yeah, I bawled. And I get emotional thinking about it now because that those few years changed my life in ways that are really hard to explain. But it also set me on a path that I am just so grateful to be on now. And I share the bawling part, A, because we've been okay being vulnerable in this conversation, but B, just think about what's going through someone's head when they're saying they're leaving for, a 50 to 70% salary increase, a bigger scope, like all these boxes have been checked, and you're crying about leaving the people that you've been with the last few years. I just don't think it happens very often. It doesn't make me special. It just points, I think it illustrates the connections that we had and the bonds that we forged. I took the principles to the next organization, and I can't bullshit you. It was a much tougher putt.
Mm.
Some organizations, and I'm sure your audience can relate to this, and you might as well. The toxicity is so ingrained in the DNA. It is at all levels, including the people that you would really expect to be the ones to toe the ethical line. Was really troubling to me. And it was exacerbated in the fact that the fellow who hired me that was really hot to get me in the organization, he left about
Oh.
six months into my tenure. He left. So I was hired to do this transformation. The new guy came in, didn't quite agree with the transformation, didn't kind of agree with the premise of the transformation. So I was kind of on an island. And then, how should I say it? Lord of the Flies comes to mind. It,
I'm totally with you. I got
Enough
it.
said, right? Enough
Yeah.
said. Lasted about a year there, and just I was on such a high from the previous gig to this one. I saw pockets of transformation from my work, but I realized that this was going to be more than I had in me, and this is around the time folks from my previous team were calling to say, where's this book and what are you doing next about it? And I thought, well, if you really are committed to this and it's not just show and tell and you really believe that this is now your purpose on this planet, you got to walk away. And that's what I did. Now, I won't bullshit you. I was very, very fortunate that, I had a contract, and when it was time to leave, I had a parachute. I had a landing pad, which included a non-compete. So I couldn't go back to work in the same industry for the next 12, 15 months.
Yep.
And I'm not the kind of guy to sit on the bench for very long. So that was the time I took. That's when I said, I'm going to do this book. I wrote the book over the course of the next 15, 18 months, and never stopped since.
Man, that's awesome. What was the book writing process like for you as a new author? How did it go?
It's awful.
I've heard that
Sucks.
multiple times.
Yeah, it sucks. And I see, I have my Mount Rushmore of authors, and I've seen them answer similar questions, and I just don't know that they're being completely authentic. It was I say this with complete awareness that I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's how it feels from this side, from my chair. It's about as close to having a baby as I could probably ever come close to feeling, because lasted a long time. It was painful at times, and I cried when it was done as well, because I felt like I had accomplished something that I just never felt as if was within my capability, maybe. And I'm not capability as much as it was just never a thing for me. The process itself was no different than anything else that we all, when we take on something that we want to be excellent at, or do a really, optimal job at. I had to be disciplined in my writing time. I was very clear to carve out hours that without fail, I'm at a keyboard writing something.
Yep.
My publisher was very kind also in that I was partnered with a writing coach who is a brilliant woman that she's still in my life today. As a matter of fact, we just started work on book number 2, and I don't think I'll ever write a book without her. So Greta was really instrumental in kind of keeping me on task as well. But the whole process itself was not a fun one for 2 reasons. It forced me to do that self-reflection I talked about a bit earlier, to actually think through scenarios that like guided and shaped me, good, bad, or otherwise, get those in writing. And then it also forced me to take my head out of this apathetic place I was in, to say, no, dude, like you were partially to blame, if not mostly to blame, for how you feel right now. Okay, this is your chance to get it out, get it all out of you, put it in writing. If I can touch, like I said, up to 1,000 people, man, mission accomplished. But anyone who's ever contemplated writing a book, or you have a message or a story that you have to get out there, I would encourage you to do it. But just know that when you make that commitment, it's like all things worth having. It's going to require some work. And I was so nervous about it, I didn't even tell my wife for the first month or so, because I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want to be that guy to say, yeah, I'm doing this, and then only like to peter out and it never happened. That's not who I am. But it was a cathartic experience in so many ways, but also it forced me to really kind of think more deeply about why I do what I do, why I'm here, why am I here? It forced me to. And I will add this, man. The book and the principles have become ingrained in who I am as a man, as a human, now so more than as a leader, because I found, back to the hypocrisy thing, I found corporate Kyle was not holding himself to the same standards outside of work. And I thought, you hypocrite, dude, you can't get people to follow you if you're going to be somebody else when you're outside of the workplace. And then I started to hear from readers about how they're using the principles. I had a fellow tell me, well, multiple at this point, say that they have kind of informed how they're raising their children, which is like, I have chills just even saying it. It's so the message and the momentum that we've created started as strictly a business book, but now it's starting to make its way into other areas. I had a school district reach out saying, we need this for our students. So it's just been such a blessing. But the writing process itself was not a fun one. Not a fun one.
Yeah, for what it's worth, we've had lots of authors on the channel, and
What do they say?
it's rare to have someone say I loved it. Like,
Really?
it's way
Okay.
more common to hear your feedback. Like,
Oh,
it
that
was
makes me feel
brutal.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brutal.
Yeah, it sucks, man. But
Yeah,
worth it.
look,
All worth it.
Yeah, something you said there, I really resonates with me because it's something that and I don't think I'm unique to it, but I certainly am very aware of it with me personally, is struggling with consistency through multiple aspects of my life and how I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
live my life.
yeah,
And I really appreciate you kind of talking about that out loud. I find myself doing the same thing, like, hey, I'm really killing it and doing things the way I really want to be doing them here. But man, I really suck over here at these same principles. Why am
yeah.
I not being as consistent as I want to be? And it's like it's a constant struggle for me personally to remain consistent through the various aspects of my life, whether it's professionally, whether it's my relationship with my wife, whether it's my relationship with my kids, whatever it is. I really, really want to be consistent, and I don't seem to be very good. I don't seem to be very good at it most of the time. It seems like there's always some area of my life where I'm fucking it up, you know?
You know what that tells me about you? It tells me everything I need to know about you. You're a human.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's just that's how it goes. But you just reminded me of something, dude, that I think you would appreciate. So I had an epiphany moment when I realized I was being a hypocrite. So I mentioned we number one is we do the right thing always. So here I was, this is a couple of years ago now. I'm at a grocery store by myself, go out to the parking lot, unload all my groceries, put them in the truck, and I was that guy. I took my cart, put it in the parking spot next to me, not in the cart corral, didn't take it
Yeah.
back to the grocery. I was that guy. And jumped in the truck, reverse, go to pull out, and I look in my rearview mirror, and that grocery cart is starting to roll across the parking
It's
lot.
Jaws. Yeah, I call it Jaws, looking for something to kill.
Yeah. And in my inner dialogue went exactly like this. You fucking hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. And I told you, man, that's the worst thing I can do. I can hear. So what did I do? I put my truck in park, jumped out, put the cart back. I have never, ever, ever, and will never, don't care what the weather's like, don't care how many people are there, the parking situation, will never do that again. And it sounds so trivial, but I made a decision that day. It sounds so small, so silly, but I want to be consistent with this. I want to be consistent about being known for doing the right thing, no matter how big or small. And that's one that it's a point of pride for me now, so much so that my friends and family, my wife, they're all aware of this story. And if I go to a grocery store with any one of them, like recently for the Super Bowl, my buddy and I ran to the grocery store, loaded up a bunch of beer and all this stuff, right? Went out to his truck. I had to run right next door, the liquor store next door. I had to pick up a couple bottles there. I come out of the liquor store, my buddy Kevin. I see him sprinting across the parking lot with the cart in his hands to put it away. So he's heard the story and he ain't gonna leave him behind like I did, right? Because he knows I'm gonna be like, Kev, we do the right thing, right, man? So it's just one of those things that small little it's chipping away, man. Small little acts become big, big habits, and for me, that's a small one, but it's stuck with me. Motivation's fleeting. It is. We have to find other things than motivation. So for me, it's just being consistent on the little things because they
Systems
add up.
and habits. That's exactly right. And that
Yeah, brother.
so it's funny because my wife and I have had several conversations lately about. So I'm 54, and it occurred to me a couple years ago that I'm not actually going to live forever like I thought I was gonna. Um,
Wow, is that right?
I know it's wild. I couldn't believe it. I
This
couldn't
just
believe
in,
it.
huh? You are human.
I was like, God damn it. I thought for sure this was going on forever. And it occurred to me it's not. And so like we were talking the other day and said, hey, look, we gotta age, but we don't gotta get old. Those are two
Oh,
entirely different things.
yeah,
And right now, we don't have our lives set up in a way that would prevent us from getting old. We gotta change that like right now.
yeah,
And so today I've got I don't know if you've ever seen the big ass calendar, but that's
no.
exactly what it is. It's a big ass calendar with 365 days on it for
Okay.
2026. And I said, we're just going to plan out stuff to ensure that we're challenging ourselves and we're setting goals for ourselves and we're holding ourselves accountable. My wife's all in on this stuff, by the way. She is awesome on all this stuff. So I'm the anchor on some of this shit most of the time. But
What was one of the one or two things that went on that calendar first?
well, so like I want to do like one significant thing every year that we'll talk about for the rest of our lives, whatever that is.
Ah,
Could be a
okay.
trip, could be an activity, it could be learning something new, could be anything, but it needs to be like a big, big, like, hey, we're going after this. And
Yeah.
around New Year's on 2026, we're going to be like, hey, this is it. And then I want to take a trip every quarter somewhere. I don't care where
Okay.
it is, but get out of our environment, get out of our routines, get out of everything, and go do something where it's just me and my wife. So those are two of the things that I know
Very
we'll
powerful.
we'll boil down to other things, but
So what's the thing in 26 then? Not the trip, but what is the big thing you're going to look back at?
yeah, that's where we got to figure it out.
You don't know yet.
Yeah, we got to
Okay.
sit down and plan it out. So I don't
Okay.
want to be I certainly could just say this is what we're doing and she could say yes or no, but I'd rather just plan it out since it's both of us, you know?
Strategic. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you
Yep.
got to be intentional, right? We have to be intentional. Otherwise, we start to wilt, right? And if mediocrity is in your vocabulary, then just do the same thing, right? Do the same. But if you want to stretch yourself and grow and develop and be proud of something, look back and say, can you believe we did that? How cool was that, honey? Good for you, man. Good on you.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you look back at the things in your life, you're like, man, that was a great experience. You put a lot of work into whatever that was. It didn't just wander into your living room and happen to you, you
Yeah.
know?
So
And
true.
but if we're intentional about the things that we work
That's
on,
the word. Yep.
then we're going to be it's funny because I always tell people don't focus on the outcome. Like you're way too focused on the outcome. The outcome will come if we focus on the approach. And so when I got done playing baseball, I coached when all our boys were young. And I would tell our coaches, hey, if you want to teach guys to be good hitters, don't focus on them getting hits. That's all you're going to do is put pressure on them. Teach them what good hitters do and focus on
Mechanics.
having that approach every
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
they go to the plate. How do they
Yeah.
hold their hands? How do they hold their
Yeah.
head? What do they think when they're at the
Details. Yeah.
plate? How do they move their feet? What do they do with their hips? If
Hmm.
you just coach that over and over and over again, it will become second nature to them. And
Right.
then we're in a game situation, the hits will follow.
So
So
true.
coach the approach. That's something that we always talk about.
Coach the
And it's
approach.
very easy for us, at least for me in my everyday life, to lose sight of that. And it's like you got to pull yourself up every once in a while and inspect how you got things set up and be honest with yourself. That's the hard part, I think, for a
Look
lot
in the
of
mirror. That's
you
right.
know.
Yep. And answer the tough questions, right? Because as the CEO, as you know, people are going to often tell you what they think you want to hear, not what you need to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good for
for
you,
sure.
man. Good for you.
So then you're so the book way more successful than you anticipated it becoming, which is awesome. I don't think that's an accident. I think it's because of the content, and the content really, really resonates
Thank
with
you.
people. But
Thank
that
you.
has turned into a whole new life for you. Talk about how that happened and kind of how things work for you now. And I want to spend some time going over the book just because I
Yeah.
got you here and I'm selfish and I want I
No,
want
of
to go through it
course.
with you.
Yeah. Whatever you like, brother. So it's launched a speaking career that's allowed me to travel the globe to share the message and spread the message. And well, so last week, for example, I was with Tennessee Oncology, a major oncology enterprise, obviously in the state of Tennessee. And what a privilege. What a privilege to be able to spend an hour and a half sharing, my thoughts, the principles, experiences. Um, and that's the kind of thing, dude, that just fills my cup, man. I left there so energized. And that's just one, I have two keynotes next week. So it's put me in a position, it's got me on a lot of stages to share experiences and the principles and stories and the better way. And I think right behind that in terms of impact is I've done a lot of work with leadership teams of organizations. So, if a company is trying to drive a transformation, or maybe they just need a shot in the arm, they've just recognized that they're kind of mired in we've always done it this way type paradigm.
Yeah,
So I'll come in. We've got a workbook that accompanies the book that I'll facilitate, or one of our trainers will facilitate, walking each of the leadership team as a collective group through the workshop. We just launched an online course, which I'm really proud of. It's got like 50 videos in it, lots of follow along. There's a journal that you can document your thoughts and experiences as each video asks you to do, and it's something people can look back at and use as a source of inspiration and reminder more than anything. So it's just allowed me to do the speaking, the working with organizations and leaders alike, and gets me in front of guys like you to have great conversations. And I just feel so fortunate. I'm a lucky guy. Now, the truth is, I've made a lot of my own luck. I didn't come from a whole lot. Paid my way through school, undergrad, MBA, all those things, and just I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, I just try to be a good human. I think nearly every single good human can be great leader, but I'm convinced every great leader is absolutely a good human.
Mm.
So for me, I just try to remind myself of that and behave in a way that, again, my mother would be proud of, and 9-year-old Kyle would look up and say, "Yeah, dude, you're doing it."
Yeah, and look, we'll talk about it because I went, obviously I've done my research and I read the 10 W's, but all that happened because you took action, and it's something that we talk about all the time on this podcast. Like I said earlier, no one's going to walk in your living room and hand you a great job. No one's going to walk in to your living room and anoint you the galactic commander of something, or give you all sorts of skills that you did not develop on your own. You got to go do that.
Give
And
it.
so I'm a huge believer in coaching. I'm a huge believer in reading and watching
Mhm.
videos and
Mhm.
learning, but it doesn't mean a thing if you don't take it out and put it into action. And
Right.
so I'd love, before we jump into the book, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a couple of anecdotes from all of the experiences that you've had since you wrote the book and the keynote speeches and the working with groups and stuff. A couple of anecdotes that really kind of hit home for you, that really reinforce, like you just talked about Tennessee oncology, getting your blood flowing. Um, Give us a couple of examples of things that you experience. You were like, man, I just can't imagine it getting better than this, you know?
The Tennessee oncology one, maybe because of hindsight bias, is a really, really, really big one. I recall a keynote I gave to Audi, the auto manufacturer, and I'm gonna go back to a bit of a story I told a moment ago, but this is where it first took place. So I'm at this big auditorium with I don't know how many leaders from Audi, and I'm going through my speech, and we get to the Q&A portion, and in the back of the room, this fella raises his hand, and I said, "Yes, sir," and he stands up, and he's a former Division I football player, big jack dude, bald head, Mr. Clean looking guy, really intimidating, and I said, "Oh shit, I don't know where this is going." And he said, if you read this book and you embrace these principles, it will change your life. It has changed the way I'm raising my children.
Wow.
And that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And I've heard stories since then from readers, but that was the first time. And I think it's the only time it's ever happened in person. And gosh, now it occurs to me now that I'm gonna come across like a blubbering idiot because then as well I teared up because it was such a profound. Here's this guy that like is intimidating as hell, and I have no idea where he's going. He shares this, and he goes on to say it's changed how I am coaching my son's high school football team as well. And this was towards the, as I mentioned, it was during Q&A, and I started to well up with tears. I noticed he was as well, and I just was like, I was behind a podium, and there was a stool behind me, and I just sat back down, and I said, "You guys, I got nothing else." And that was the end of the Q&A. And so that one sticks with me. What I think there's a couple of companies come to mind. I won't name them for their sake, but when I'm done and I leave a keynote, at the risk of sounding a bit arrogant, there is always a tremendous sense of excitement and optimism. Like this is what we needed. And let me be really clear: there's nothing I say on stage that is groundbreaking.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the 10 We's are incredibly simple. They're so simple, but they're not easy. Two very different words, man. They're not easy. But what really kind of motivates me and where I'm going with this part of the story is when I hear from them, I'll get a handwritten letter 30, 60, 90 days later. And they share stories of how the principles have started to take hold in their organization, how they're seeing so and so who was such an obstinate resistor is now on board. And our conversations are more open and transparent now. We're challenging each other in ways that we never have before. And the egos have started to kind of subside, and people are really invested in the mission, what it is we're trying to accomplish. Those light a fire underneath me as well. Because I'm human, man. There's certainly days where, imposter syndrome might creep in a little bit, and you just wonder, are you really having the impact that you're trying to have?
Mhm.
And experiences like that, interactions like that, and then seeing, again, Tennessee oncology comes to mind because from the CEO down to every single person I met there's a real hunger for this better way. They're all under pressure. They're all under probably overworked. They have more things on their calendar than they can deal with, more compliance issues, safety issues, you name it. And if they fuck up, people die.
Exactly. That's
Um,
what I was just thinking.
you're right. And I shared with them. So I lost my mother to cancer, and I shared with them at the beginning of the keynote, my profound appreciation for the opportunity to meet with them. But then I shared with them, and I think anyone who's had any exposure to that disease, whether it's personally or within a family member, like, I can tell you my mother was diagnosed and died from sarcoma. I cannot tell you anything else about the clinical diagnosis, but I can tell you a lot about how that team made me feel. I can tell you a lot about how they turned chaos into a little bit of certainty every now and then, how they remove fear. It's not in their job description, but when I think back of our journey and the ugly year that we had before she passed, the role that those people play, dude, is they don't make enough money. I don't know how much any of them make, but to try to set a family, to give them some glimpse of hope, but yet be realistic about the journey and the path that you're on is a really tough ask from anyone. And I felt it in that room. I felt it from the CEO to every other person I met. And I'm still high from that meeting. Just last Friday, I was there.
Fuck, I'm fired up and I wasn't even there. I love
Yeah,
that
dude,
stuff,
it's
man. It's
it's
just
real.
being able to impact people's lives in a positive way is so fulfilling. It's like the highest and best use of
Yeah,
humanity, to use
yeah,
an economic term.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
We're
such
wired
good
for
stuff.
it, Joe. It's in our DNA. Like we're tribal by nature, but over the course of the last century, I don't know, when we step into the workplace for some reason, not any good reasons, but probably for several reasons actually, we lose that bit of humanity. And this is when the Lord of the Flies things becomes reality. And I just don't think it doesn't have to be that way, right? Someone doesn't have to lose for you to win. There's enough spotlight for everyone to go around. If you show up and do your level best, and you have a leader who's interested in developing you, your growth in your journey, helping you get to your next step, even if it's outside of this company, you think they work less hard for you while they're there? Of course not. I just think it's a human obligation. I didn't always lead that way. The truth is when you take on this approach to your leadership, you have to work harder. It does require more effort, requires more time. You know this, man. Got to be available on holidays. But that's what you signed up for. You didn't just sign up for authority and a bigger paycheck. You signed up to guide, lead, and inspire and motivate others. And I think that is more important than any metric because if you do those things well, the metrics come.
Man, thanks for sharing all that. That's
Right on.
that's super stuff. Just side note, if you've never read Lord of the Flies, you need to read it. It is a
It's a good
study in
one.
humanity.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, look, I was hoping we could just buzz through. I don't know if buzz is the right word, but I want to go through the 10 Wees while
You
I got
bet.
you here because I loved them when I read them, and I couldn't agree with you more. They're not revolutionary at all. They're
Mm-mm.
not groundbreaking at all. They're very simple, but they ain't easy. Those are two entirely different things. So let's just start with number one. We
You
do the
bet.
right thing always.
Yep, yep. And Joe, if I may, before I dive in, I would love to challenge your audience to, as I walk through these, two things. One, there's going to be an element of, well, yeah, no shit, Kyle, no shit. As we said, simple does not mean easy. Losing weight is simple. We know how to lose weight,
Absolutely.
but when you make that decision to actually do it, it ain't easy.
Yep.
Right? We know the formula, take in fewer calories, burn more calories. You want to learn how to play the guitar. You got to get lessons. You got to get on YouTube, whatever it is, but you have to do something very simple, but rarely is it easy. That's request one. And then maybe a favor is of your audience is as I walk through these, take your corporate hat off for a moment and just wonder, what if I behaved and held myself to these standards everywhere? Would I have better relationships with my friends and family, with my spouse? Like, what impact could this have? And for me, opening the aperture to be more than just corporate-y and work-ish, I think is really, really important. So the first is we do the right thing always. We may disagree on what the right thing is. We can argue about it, but we're going to talk about it, but certainly never approach any question or scenario with anything other than the right thing in mind. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to take the easy way out. If it's hard, it doesn't matter. We're going to do the right thing. And as a leader, well, really any person, I think it's if I want to demonstrate my commitment to doing the right thing, number two is we lead by example. And it's not a question whether or not should I lead by example. Everybody always likes to say, are you? The question is, are you leading by an example you would be proud if it were replicated? If you're not in the room and your team is behaving with the example that you've set, is that something functional? Is it something you'd be proud of? But if I'm committed to doing the right thing and I want to manifest that and demonstrate it by leading by example, we have to embrace we number three. And it's we say what we're going to do and then we do it. right? There's always an understanding, or it's kind of a foregone conclusion that when I commit to something outside of the workplace, it's going to happen to those we serve, our customers. Maybe it's a vendor, whatever, but I'm going to make good on my commitments. That same level of commitment must be made with inside the team, behind the curtain. If I owe you something, Joe, it's going to come. And if it doesn't come, you're going to be well aware of the reasoning behind it because you're counting on me. We're going to treat each other like a client in this regard. Our clients can see if we're high functioning behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Likewise, if we're dropping the ball with each other between functional areas or whatever, they feel that as well. Like how many times have you called a customer service number waiting for, trying to get something changed or whatever? Oh, it's with this department. We got to wait so and so days or whatever the turnaround time is. But the point is, there's always this kind of like outsourcing of stuff. Not in a culture of excellence, not in our orgs, man. When we say we're going to do something, we are going to do it without fail. Now, that requires us to take on we number four. We take action. And you used that exact expression earlier. Something's not going well, it's suboptimal, we have a process that's broken, or maybe we have a chance to improve the employee experience or the customer experience. Every organization is ripe with opportunities to step away from mediocrity, but rarely do people raise their hand and say, hey, boss, you see that gnarly problem over there? We should probably do something about that. Or, deeper in the organization, we have people executing on processes that make no sense, and we just do it because we've always done it that way. The frontline person should be able to say, why do we do this? And just raising your hand to say something is not right is taking action. It's calling folks to the right folks to the room around the table to say, we have an opportunity to be better. We're not selling for mediocrity. Now, if we want our teams and the members of our teams to be focused on taking action, we got to be ready for mistakes. And that's we number five. We own our mistakes. And you owned it right out of the gate. You made me wait so long for this conversation to happen because you rescheduled. But you said it. You said we own our miscomings, I think is the way you framed it. Similarly, we own our mistakes.
Yeah.
Mistakes are fuel for growth. And we can't fix them if we don't know it's out there. So we want our teams to say, boss, I blew it. Now, the only way people are going to do that consistently is when they see you do it. And you also gave an example of that. It's like, guys, I blew it. Man, was I wrong about that? Or, man, did I overreact in that one-on-one earlier today? My bad. I'm going to own that mistake. That's on me, man. It's really important to have that culture because if people aren't owning their mistakes, that means they're hiding shit. And those little hiding things turn into be bigger issues. And before you know it, we're trying to fix a really big issue that had we known about it weeks or months ago, we wouldn't even be talking about it. So we got to own our mistakes. The only way people are comfortable to own their mistakes is with we number six. We pick each other up. We all bring baggage to work. We all have nonsense going on outside of the workplace. Some of us have nonsense going on inside the workplace, but it's incumbent on a leader to do a couple of things. If someone's struggling, underperforming, whatever the scenario is, you don't have to dig deep. You don't have to pry. We talked about this kind of earlier. It's like, Joe, man, I noticed like your numbers aren't where they were. And I don't know what's going on. Don't need you to share all the details with me unless you're comfortable, but I just need you to know I noticed and I care and we pick each other up, right? So I'm here to help. What do you need from me to get out of this slump? What can I
Hmm.
do? And oftentimes it's nothing. And it's right back to the person who's underperforming, but they need to know we care. They need to know we're here to pick them up. But it's not leader to team member only, peer to peer, team member to leader, right? We have to have that mindset. There's a second obligation for those in a position of authority, and that's to propel others to new heights. And the best example I can give is someone on the team has expressed an interest to take on more. Maybe they want your job. Maybe they want to leave the company and go do something else somewhere else. When we take the time to invest in their growth and development to show we actually care what's next for them. You want my job? Okay, let's shadow. I'll show you the things that I do. I'll give you exposure that you maybe have not otherwise had. You want to leave the company, go do something else? Let's talk about that. What does that role require? I look at it as my obligation to put them in a position that next role is a foregone conclusion. Because here's the thing that people, most people, when they realize someone on the team is looking, or maybe they're interviewing, or they've expressed desire to leave, what do? We write them off. We write them off. And they're going to leave anyway. So you can write them off and get nothing out of them for the next however long, 2 weeks or whatever it is, or months or whatever. But when you express that you care about what's next for them, not as a member of the team, but as a human trying to make their way through this thing called life, dude, you think they work less harder for you when they know that? Of course not. I had a
Right.
guy many, many years ago share with me. He was confident enough to share. He was in the interview process, looking at another role, kind of a shoe in for the role. He shared with me that he had one final interview because he was preparing me. He was my right hand guy that I had a ton of respect for. And I said, okay, what's next, man? When's the next interview? He said, I have it Monday. Well, who's it with? He gave me the person's name. I looked them up on LinkedIn. I said, let's do a mock interview. Bring your resume on Friday. We're going to do it. We'll do it. We're going to be ready. Um, he had the interview, didn't get the job. We worked together for 14 more years at 4 different companies. Think he worked less hard when he saw that I cared about him?
Right.
I haven't worked, and by the way, I haven't worked with him in maybe a decade. We had a call. It's probably been 2 months now. He was contemplating 3 different roles. Who did he call to bounce ideas off of and to do some mock question and answer? It was me. That's the kind of thing that doesn't show up on a performance appraisal, right? That's the kind of thing it's hard to quantify. But when you express a desire, genuine desire to pick others up, it is almost always reciprocated. We number 7 gets a little bit more difficult for people to kind of get their heads around. It's about outcomes versus activity. We number 7 is we measure ourselves by outcomes, not activity. And there's a really fine line here. And I don't know if this is something you can relate to or not. You're the CEO, so maybe not. And I mean that in the most respectful of ways. Most organizations are so enamored with meetings.
Oh,
We have too many meetings that don't solve enough problems that are not connected to the outcomes that we're chasing. For example, if we have team members that we have taking on processes or functions or duties that are not conspicuously aligned to the outcomes that are going to show up on their performance appraisal, it should be scrutinized. I'm not minimizing the impact or the importance of activity. For example, I'm thrilled that my Uber driver puts gas in the car before they pick me up, but I didn't pay for that. I paid to get from A to B. The real world, I'm sorry, they care about outcomes. I'm with you that if we focus on the outcomes, that can be a distraction. I love what Nick Saban says. Outcomes are a distraction.
mhm.
That's when we prioritize the outcomes over the work that's required to get there. I'm not minimizing the importance of activity. The activity in the example you gave was, yeah, let's get our hands in the right position. Let's get our footwork ready. Let's get our hips open. Whatever the scenario is, those are activities that are incredibly important. But you're not going to ask a hitter or a ball player to go engage in a bunch of activities that do not lead to the outcomes that define success. You're just
Well,
not.
plus, what if they do it wrong? Like that's just activity. Then you're
Wasted.
ingraining bad habits into your swing.
It's
Like
it's
if I
right, and
don't,
it compounds.
yeah, if I don't correct it right then and say, no, no, that's not good enough. You got to do it better.
Well, that is a brilliant segue to we number 8. We challenge each other. And it's been my experience, and I was probably the biggest perpetuator of this. Like my voice was the only one that mattered. I had all the answers. Challenge was not really in my vocabulary. And that boy, is that a recipe for mediocrity?
Yeah.
We need peers challenging peers. We need members of the team challenging the leader. We need that leader challenging the more senior leader because that is how progress is found. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier with simple and easy. I just believe that nearly everything in this existence that's worth having is almost always the result of overcoming one or more challenges. And we just have to be in a position that's suboptimal, that's mediocre, that's not who we are. We're going to address that, take action on it, and we're going to challenge each other. Now, without we number 9, we number 8 is a recipe for chaos. And we number 9 is we embrace challenge. And that has to be a paradigm of ours because whether it's a market threat, whether it's a new competitor that's come into our space, maybe we're in a cash flow issue, whatever the scenario is, we're not going to run from it. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to be like, yeah, whatever. I don't know how we're going to get through this big layoff, but we'll get there. No, no, no. We're going to be open and honest about it. I'm terrified of this, guys. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. With this team around me, looking at the women and men on this team right now, I am convinced this is the right team, and we're going to lock arms and we're going to get through this. And the next time something gnarly happens, we're going to look back at this experience and say, remember how we got through that? We're going to be galvanized by challenges. We're not going to run from them, and we're not going to sugarcoat them. We number 10, the final of the 10 we's. I was intentional to leave it as number 10 because I think it's a recipe for disappointment any earlier. It's we obsess over details. I think details matter a whole lot, especially when it's a product or service that's going out to the marketplace. I developed this nickname, one of probably many, but it was the only one my team would ever share with me, of the shredder. And you know how this works in corporate America, right? So it's like I got a presentation to my boss or maybe the board or somebody more senior, whatever. It's like, you get with your team, let's put together some slides, like let's tell the story, right? The team would always bring the PowerPoint in or we do it virtually and I would shred the damn thing. Why is this font different than that font? Why is the margin different here? Why is the color off from this color? And it sounds trivial, but I just think in a world that is so competitive in nearly every space, it's the details that separate us from those with whom we compete. Not just an organizational level. Your obsession and connection with the details as a leader, as an employee, it's your brand. And do you want to be known as the guy or the gal that's always the one making silly mistakes, careless mistakes because you didn't sweat the details? Or you want to be the person that's known for not being perfect, because we ain't striving for perfection, but we are going to obsess over those details because that is what's going to make us who we are and separate us from those with whom we compete. That's the 10 We's in a nutshell. That's maybe the fastest I've ever run through them.
I love it. And look, a lot more detail behind these in the book. I'm just saying. So
Yeah.
we'll include the link as we always do down in the show notes to check out the
Thank you.
book. So
Thank
when
you.
you present or you do work, the two questions, but they're very closely related to each other. What type of pushback do you get from people that want to resist making these changes or
Oh, yeah.
considering these options? And two, what do you find or what do you think drives that pushback or
Ah,
resistance?
yeah. So, yes, always pushback.
Right?
Um, and in the book, I talk about it. There's like the willing adopter, and then there's like obstinance on the other end. The truth is, you're never going to get 100% on board. You're
Right.
never going to get everybody in the room to be on board. And why it's different for each of those obstinate people. In Julia's case, it was she had been burned from bosses of yesterday. So it's usually it comes of, I think, one of two camps. One is I've been burned. I don't trust this guy. He hasn't earned that trust yet. And the other is that ain't gonna work here. That just won't work here. Like I've been here longer than this guy. He's a new guy. It's not going to work here. So I'm not even going to try it because he'll be gone before this thing even becomes before the paint dries on it. Um, and in both of those scenarios, the only way to get through that is to model it. You gotta walk the walk, man. There's no substitution. When you're as a leader, when your actions and your words are not aligned, you're a fraud. They see it. They see it. They see it. And the more you try to hide from it and cover it up, the more obvious it becomes. So recognizing why people are resisting the way that they are is really, really important, but nothing matters if you don't live it every single day. And that's what I've tried to do. And let me tell you, man, it's not easy. When you are challenged, our natural reaction as humans is to be like, hang on a second, especially if it's an idea that we birthed, like we're going to be really connected to that. It's not easy, especially if you're used to managing, not leading, but managing with your business card
Right.
versus actually influence. It is very, very difficult. And that's where I think I've seen most any organization that has failed to really firmly embrace and adopt the principles. It's usually for that reason. They're looking for a check the box type thing, which is the antithesis of actually living it every day.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And I look, I can't remember the time where we had to make a change or a switch, uh, in whether it was mentality or structure or process, where there wasn't significant pushback. Right? I mean, there always is. Anytime you're
Natural.
leading groups of people,
Hmm.
you're not going to get whatever 300, 10,000, whatever the number is. They're not
Hmm.
all going to agree. They're
That's
not all
right.
going to buy in right from the beginning. They're not all going to think you're right. That comes with the territory of
Hmm.
leadership.
Hmm.
And it's like we were talking about earlier, I do not like that, man. I need to get to know him better. You need to inspect the criticism and say, okay, so what first is this valid criticism?
Hmm.
Like, I did an episode on our podcast that was how to filter criticism because it's very easy to dismiss all criticism and just say, hey, I must be right, especially when it comes from someone that may not like you very much or
Yeah,
you don't
that's
like
hard.
them very much.
Yeah,
That doesn't make them wrong. Like
that's
they
right.
more than one thing can be true at the same time. They can
So
be a
true.
jerk and could also have identified a very real flaw in your process, your approach, whatever it is. And
Amen.
to dismiss that, I think, is irresponsible as a
Good
leader,
word.
you
Good
know?
word. Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that can be a hard thing for people to do.
Hmm.
I fall back. It's funny for me. I fall back a lot on what I learned when I played baseball because it's a game filled with failure. Like you fail a ton in
Game of failure.
baseball.
That's right.
Yep. Like it's wild, and you have to develop a mentality that hey, I'm going to be successful this time. Forget my over 20 streak. This is the time I get the hit and break
Right.
out of it. This is the time I make the pitch I need to make. Whatever.
Yeah.
your role is. And that game doesn't wait for you to feel bad. It doesn't care if you're happy or sad. It doesn't care about anything. So, like,
What game does?
yeah,
What, what life does?
that's exactly the point, right?
Right? Nobody cares. Nobody's coming. That's right. Get it.
If it's meant to be, it's up to me. That is the mentality
I
we all
love
need to
that, man.
develop.
That's right. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I love that. So, through this whole process, what do you think is the biggest lesson or experience that you've learned through all this awesome interactions you've had with all these people?
There is a better way.
Mm,
It's the question I asked myself when I started off on this journey back in 2017. Is there a better way? And I am convinced the answer is yes. Now, I don't want to be naive. There are, as I mentioned, there are organizations and environments where the DNA is just too ripe with toxicity, and which poses a different question. And this is where I was at that in this one organization I mentioned. It's you got to make a decision. Is this the place that's going to allow me to be my best self? And if the answer is no, then you have a really tough next question to answer. Am I willing to make a change? Am I willing to, and that might involve some scary shit like taking a step or two backwards, including your compensation, your title. And
yep.
if the answer is no, I'm not willing to make that change, I got nothing but love for you. I got bills, you got bills, we have commitments, and I understand that. I would just say this, if you approach your job like a job, it will be a job. If you approach your job as an opportunity to impact others, to help others, to lift up others, all while improving your stake in this thing called life, then it will be that. But it has to be intentional. It has to be a choice, and it has to be almost a daily choice. I say almost every interaction, because you might wake up one day and just not have the juice. That doesn't change your obligation to bring that juice, right? That's what you signed up for. Now, if you signed up for it to be your job, I think you're missing out on an opportunity to have a bigger impact.
Mm, yeah, I love that. So let's little role play here. Let's say I I hear the 10 Wees, I read the book. I'm like, you know what? I like this, but I'm struggling to get behind it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not feeling it, or I'm not able to effectuate a change in myself. What are a couple of mental hacks or mental approaches people can use to kind of get unstuck from that rut, to thinking about it a different way, to take it a different approach? How do you work with people or encourage them to think in order to kind of embrace this and at least give it a chance?
Well, I typically start with, well, we're here because something is not optimal. Like we're having this conversation because the recipe that's been used in the past, for whatever reason, is not yielding maybe the level of quality we're hoping, the level of employee, whatever. But we're here for a reason. And if you are comfortable with the reasons and you don't want to make change, then why are we here? What are we doing? But if you're curious that there might be a better way, I say, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? And we talked about it or danced around it a moment ago. It's like if you're waiting for someone in the ivory tower to come bring you some cultural initiative that's going to drive some transformation that makes you a more impactful leader, you're going to be waiting a long time.
Mm,
Um, so we're here for a reason. You must have some serious self-reflection and be open and vulnerable to some tough questions. Um, if you're not comfortable enough or aren't certain that you're going to be objective enough to answer these types of questions, then you got to find a confidant, someone that's going to give it to you like it is, not what they think you want to hear. It's like, what's it like to be led by me? It's a great question to ask. Am I known for keeping my commitments to those I lead? It's a good question to ask. Am I making good on my commitments that I've made to others outside of the team that I lead? Am I following up? Am I behaving in a way again that I would be proud to see replicated? If we're all honest with those questions, the answer is rarely affirmative across the board. That there's almost always an opportunity to do something differently, or at least experiment with something differently. So we're here for a reason, a little bit of a lot of self-reflection about what it is you want to be. How do you want to be known? Like, what do you want your leadership legacy to be? Two words that are rarely used in the same sentence. You have one, we all have one. Just a matter of how much energy we put into it. By the way, your employees talk about you at the dinner table. right? Your name is coming up at least once a week. And that could be scary for some people when they actually think about it. But the beauty of it is what they say about you is up to you. It's based on your look. They may not like everything you have to say, but they'll always know you're being authentic, you're being transparent, you're sharing what you can, not sharing what you can't. But it's always with this understanding that it's for the right reasons. And we can disagree on those right reasons, but it's never going to know, why did Joe do this? Why did he behave this way? Why? I'm so lost and confused. So we're here for a reason. Have the self-reflection, answer the tough questions of yourself, and then be open to a different way. If you want something different, you got to do something different. And if you find yourself in this situation, then maybe this is the right something different for you.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, that was a bit of a rhetorical question. I was not questioning the efficacy of your process because I'm all
Well,
in.
it's not 100% though. It's a fair question. It's
Yeah,
not.
no, but I'm all in on the concepts. Like I absolutely love it. And I maybe that's a good thing to just state here is these are concepts that you have to figure out how to implement in your structure, in your world, in your circle of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And that might look different for the way you do it. I'm not saying don't do the right thing all the time, or
Of
but
course.
what is the right thing? Like what is it you're focused on? What's important to you to convey to those around you? You have to make those decisions and convey those to the group and get buy-in for the group. And how do you challenge people? Like I come from an athletic environment. It was not uncommon for me to be nose to nose with someone else,
Oh
say,
yeah.
"Hey, that wasn't fucking good enough."
That's right.
And
Yeah.
him doing it back to me when I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that was the environment, and that was okay. Like 5 minutes later, you'd hug it out and go, "Hey, man, I just want to win the game." And he'd be like, "I got it.
I
Let's
love
just pick it
that.
up and let's get after it." That
Yeah.
doesn't cut it in a boardroom. That behavior's not going to work
Yeah, not so much. Not so.
in a boardroom.
But I'll say this, man. Look, when we hire someone into the team, we do a really good job in most environments of saying, here are the things that we will use to evaluate your effectiveness, your success, your KPIs, whatever's on your performance appraisal. Like here are the things. But I don't think many leaders, and I'm certain most organizations don't go just as far in establishing behavioral expectations. And that's what the principles are. They're behaviors.
Yep.
And I think when we lean just as hard into how we do what we do, we can't help but be higher functioning. My point is this. I don't, and I know this sounds kind of odd coming from the guy that wrote them. I don't care if you embrace the 10 We's. I really don't. I don't. I can't force them on you. I can never, I get a question a lot is how long does it take for some of these things to take hold? And the answer is, I don't know because I don't know your level of commitment. But what I do care about, if it's not the 10 We's, establish your leadership principles. By definition, a principle is a fundamental truth or reasoning or chain of reasoning for a fundamental system of beliefs. And if we can get a group of people aligned on a fundamental system of beliefs, there's nothing we can't accomplish together. So if it's not the 10 We's, document your leadership principles, the things that you're going to be held accountable to from your team, and the things that you're going to hold them accountable for and to. Life is so much easier when we operate out of this ambiguity zone where you think that they know how to behave, or you think everybody shows up their level best, or you think someone's going to challenge just because you've said challenge. It's not that easy. But establishing those behavioral expectations from day one, I would say even in the recruiting process, is where I'm going with this. 10 We's or otherwise, but make sure it's something.
Yeah, I love that. And that's exactly the right approach from my perspective is, hey, here's what's worked for me. Here's why it's worked for me. Here's a method by which you could use it. If it's not for you, fine, but do something,
Something.
right? Do
That's right.
something. Yeah,
Name
I
your
love
own.
we're big on action here on Salty Ginger Talk.
Amen.
Like,
Yes, sir.
what are you doing about it? That's one of my favorite
That's
questions.
it. Ownership.
Yeah, great. So did that happen? That really sucked. What are you doing about it?
Now, what are we doing? That's right. And I may not have created this situation. I didn't ask for it, but it's in my sphere. I'm damn sure going to own it. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. All right, Kyle. So this is the critical moment. Towards the end of the conversation with all my guests. Look, we cover a ton of territory. I feel like we have great conversations. We pass great learnings from our guests to our audience, which is what I love about doing the podcast. But I am not omniscient. I don't know every question to ask or every topic to bring up, and I don't want to miss something really valuable simply because I didn't ask the right question
Mm.
or cover the right territory. So this is the point where I always ask all our guests, is there anything I have not asked you, or is there any topic I have not brought up that you feel very strongly about that you want to cover while we're in front of the audience? The floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate you asking that. But the truth is, we've covered so much waterfront and you've already asked so many good questions. And it's been such a, I think, inspiring conversation, nothing comes to mind, man. No.
Totally cool. And I love that because that's always an option too.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think the main reason our podcast is done so well, it's wild to me because we started from zero like everybody else does, and we just this week passed 21,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is crazy to me. Like I'm a guy that sells groceries. I don't know how this is working.
Yeah, that's so cool. Congratulations, man.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
really
man. We
cool.
really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think it's the authenticity. I think it's the fact that people are willing to come on here and be real. One thing I did want to cover before we let Kyle go and is you've heard the word vulnerability a
Mm,
lot here. That doesn't need to be some big production. It's just being honest about what's really going on.
that's
Hey,
it.
man, I'm scared. Hey, I'm nervous. Kyle's talked about being really touched to the point of tears several
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
on the whether it was when he left his team that he developed the 10 Wees with, or with Tennessee Oncology Group, the guy that stood up in the back and said, "Hey, man, this changed the way I interact with my kids. Like this literally changed
Yeah.
my life."
Yeah.
Those are great moments to share. You can share those with someone. I'll tell you what, you can share them with complete strangers if that
Mm,
makes you more comfortable. It doesn't matter. But
yeah.
by letting your guard down and admitting what it is you're struggling with, might be fear, might be anxiety, might be a job change, might be a relationship, could be anything. The only way you're going to be able to confront a problem is to admit that it exists and then try to figure out what you're going to do about it. So I just
Well
really want to
said.
thank you, Kyle, in particular, because I think you did a great job of modeling that behavior and showing leadership on that behavior in our
Well,
conversation.
well, thanks for creating a space for it to be so. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So, look, guys, the book certainly. Let me just tell you right now, I'm not going to ask Kyle. This won't be the last time we talk to Kyle. I'm certain of that. Um, we will put the link to the book and Kyle's website down below in the show notes. Um, yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. If you're listening to our podcast, and like one of the reasons I do the podcast, I'm not getting it all right. I'll tell you right now, I got stuff to work on. I got plenty of things to work on.
You're in good company.
Kyle said it. If you want something different, you got to do something different. And that's one of the challenges we try to give ourselves. I'm giving you that challenge. If you're unhappy, if you're unfulfilled, if you don't feel a sense of purpose in your life, go check the book out and try to start implementing some of these principles and see what happens. Like, do something different. Like,
Mm,
don't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result because it ain't coming. It's on
yeah.
you. You
Well
are
said.
the force that's going to move the immovable object. It's you. So it's a great place to start with Kyle's resources. Kyle, really appreciate you sharing everything you shared on here. Loved having you on. Won't be the last time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you, Joe.
All right, man. Have a great night.
You as well.
Man, Kyle, that was worth the wait. I really, I
You
really
think?
appreciate just your approach. I
What
loved
a
it.
blast. Yeah, I had a great time. Man, you're really good at this too. So that made it very easy for me. So thank
Wow,
you.
appreciate the kind words.
Sincerely. What can I do to help?
You just promote the hell out of the podcast.
Okay.
Like we don't do like I told you, I'm the CEO of a company that owns growth. I don't do this I don't monetize it at all. Like
Right.
it's funny because my producer's like, we got so many subscribers now. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but like that's not the point. The
So
point
cool too.
point
So
isn't to
cool.
generate money. The point is to try to get the way I
Impact.
think about it, I think is very similar to what you've talked about. The more people pursuing things that matter to them, we're all going to pursue something a little bit different.
Yep.
And think about the world we leave for other people. If everyone's doing that and we can make the world better exponentially just by owning our own little universe, man. I mean, what a world we could live in if we all did
What
that.
a world we could live in. And if it can't be the world, then our little world, right? Your little sphere. Yeah. Yeah. Are you comfortable sharing the raw video? We'll chop it up and promote it as well.
Yeah, so that's 100% what we do. We are
Okay.
very different as it relates to intellectual property. A lot of people are very protective of it. We're the
Yeah.
opposite. We will send you
I'm the same way.
the whole native file. I
Okay.
want you to rebroadcast it. I want you to use it. I want you to post it
We
in various
will.
places. It's funny because I get those notices from YouTube a lot that say, your content has been recreated. I'm like, yeah, that's what we asked them to
I
do.
love
That's
it. Yeah. Yeah.
the point.
Yeah. I had to sign a release for a speech for next week that I was going to allow. They were nervous to ask me if I would allow them to replay my speech. It's for with Bosch, the big
Mm.
Bosch. Was I comfortable? I'm like, yeah, of course you can. Yeah, I'll sign this. I don't give a shit. Yeah, run it everywhere, man. I don't care. Otherwise, you're inauthentic. So please do. So thank you. I'm from the same cloth.
Yeah, totally. So we'll send you the day we publish it. We'll send you the whole file, and
Okay.
we encourage you to spread it for sure.
Okay. You ever need help with guests?
We always, excuse me, we always love getting new guests on. So if you know of anyone that would be a great fit, just to give them my email and have them email me, and we'll take them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have a couple guys come to mind. I think you'd have a really fun conversation with. A couple guys for sure. I
Yeah,
got you. Yeah,
that's
I'd be
awesome.
happy to.
Really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Well, I guess we'll go then. I so appreciate the opportunity, man. I'm not pandering. I take it very, very seriously, and I'm glad we were able to connect. I love the conversation, and if there's anything else I can do other than promote it and bring guests, just holler. I'm here.
We'll reach back out. I know you're writing the second book. When that comes out, that'll be a good
Yeah,
opportunity for us to
yeah.
revisit and kind of talk about experiences between now and then. But
Let's do
the
it.
more I can put great people in front of the audience, I think the better off we are. And the authenticity is very clear.
Yeah,
So I always tell people, I don't care who you are. I just want you to be you. If you're just you, I'm all in.
we're gonna have a great talk. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes. Don't, yeah. No fake it till you make it. Shit. Yep.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, my man.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Later.
Bye. All right, there you go, guys. So, as advertised, look, Kyle's a real deal. Really appreciate his authenticity. Really appreciate his willingness, not only to talk about the things that have gone well for him, but the things that did not go well for him and the periods in his life where he was questioning, hey, is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Is there more? What else could I be doing? This isn't fulfilling for me, even though on paper it looks like I should be really happy. So there's tons of lessons to be learned there. The 10 W's are so straightforward, like we talked about, not easy, but simple, right? Those are two different things. Complex is different than complicated. Like they're not the same thing. Complex is pretty straightforward, but it's complicated. It can get complicated. And so you got to challenge yourself. You got to challenge yourself to be better. That's what Kyle's asking us to do. Take these, see how you can implement them into your life, challenge yourself to live a life that has some meaning, that has some purpose, that provides leadership for other people. And what kind of world could we build if we all did that with each other in conjunction, right? Awesome stuff. We'll have Kyle back on. He did a great job. Kyle, really appreciate it. And good luck on your keynotes next week. And we will bring Kyle back on to the channel soon. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to all social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Awesome guests like Kyle and all of our other guests. We do episodes that give you real world techniques to start implementing right now, to change the way you think about things, to change the way you approach things, to develop a life that you love, that has meaning and purpose to you. It's all great stuff. So you don't want to miss any of it. Make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.